This is the Voice of the Land podcast.
There was other sports news that hit this week, and especially yesterday, with the Cleveland Browns. Tight end David Njoku has requested a trade, and really, I think it's his agent who is. It's Drew Rosenhaus in the NFL. It's Scott Boras in Major League Baseball. You have that agent, you know you're going to have problems. And the Browns specifically, with people that have Drew Rosenhaus as an agent, they've had issues with him. And the Browns have said they want to keep Njoku. And they've told him, you're a big part of our plans. Kevin Stefanski runs a tight end-driven offense in the passing game and can find different ways, even if you're not a great blocker, can find ways to kind of utilize what you do have in the blocking scheme to take advantage of that. And that's why they picked up another tight end, Harrison Bryant, in the draft, and they have a fourth tight end on there. They want depth at that position for what Kevin Stefanski can do. Well, Drew Rosenhaus is saying, no, we want to be traded. Did this shock you? Did this come out of left field for you yesterday when you saw this on
100%.
Twitter?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it definitely came out of left field, but it's honestly, it's a little understandable from his standpoint because he was, the bona fide number one starter at tight end going into last year. There was no question about that. He gets injured. I think he only ended up having like 5 catches on the year. Like, it wasn't a whole lot that he had going on for him, last year, especially after the injury. That being said, going into this year, you sign Austin Hooper to that huge contract for a tight end, actually the biggest in NFL history for a tight end, which was still cheap. It ended up being like $44 million, which is super cheap there for us. But you have him and Njoku battling for that number one spot. You're going to play at least two tight ends, just the way that, it's all set up there for us in Kevin Stefanski's offense. But as the number two, you are going to get less looks, and this is a make or break it year for Njoku. So I understand that he wants to go to a system that is going to allow him to be the number one, because Austin Hooper is the number one. That's a bona fide thing. We just paid you all that money to be our number one. Njoku, I understand where he's coming from. I don't like the look, because he did state back in March, through a tweet, that he's oh, no, it's all about competing. I'm here to compete. I'm here to play on this team. So he did backtrack on that. I would love to see him here, because I think that he would be the best number 2 tight end in the league. He's a middle of the road tight end as of right now as a number 1. A great red zone target, but other than that, I mean, the dude can't block to save his life.
No.
So I mean, you got to work on a lot of other things, and to me, this just shows a not mature ability to want to compete. For us. So I really was hoping that he'd be here. I don't know if he's going to be, because I think Andrew Berry, if he can get, something out of him, I think he will. Yeah, at best, you're probably going to get like a mid-round pick, for Njoku as of right now.
I think at best 5th round.
Right. One of those, I don't know if he, would be as high as a 3rd, but you're hoping him be a trading piece. But for me personally, I want Yannick Ngakoue. I want that
I've seen
dude
that going around Twitter a lot.
So bad down in Jacksonville. The dude's been, here for 4 years. He hasn't had a year under 8 sacks. Match him up with Miles and Olivier Vernon. That defensive line and Sheldon Richardson would be amazing. And I would love to see that. And just the rotation alone would be awesome. But you'd end up having to pay a good amount for him, down the road.
So here's what's interesting about that whole conversation with Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end down in Jacksonville, and David Njoku. Field Yates of ESPN wrote an article 1 week ago that just had, with no information, nothing, no sort of breaking news or any sort of inkling that certain trades are going to happen. He just put together 5 fantasy trades or imaginary trades that he would love to see, and thinks that it would be great for both teams that are involved in each one of these 5 trades. Number 1 on that list a week ago was, because Yannick Ngakoue wants to be out of Jacksonville, it was more so based on that.
And he wants to get out bad.
Right. It was a trade for him to Cleveland for David Njoku and a second-round pick in 2021. Again, no information based on this. It was just because in
pure
quarantine,
speculation, right?
In quarantine, trying to make news, just trying to have some fun, trying to keep your mind off of everything else that's going on, just to try to have a fun sports article out there. So a lot of that is, there has been ties already to that. So it's not surprising to see that name, and I know you were responding to everybody yesterday with Yannick Ngakoue and each different gift that you could possibly use.
I was throwing it out there. I'm trying to make that happen.
You're trying to speak it into existence.
Pretty much, yeah.
I guess gif it into existence.
That's right.
Would be the way that I would say that. Listen to me, David Njoku and Drew Rosenhaus. You have no leverage at all. Again, you are a talented pass-catching tight end, but you have been on a team that has barely won. You were on a team that was talented last year and only won 6 games. You have earned nothing. You have earned no leverage. You are not available all the time. And I'm not criticizing getting injured because that's not an easy thing to do. But what do we always say on this podcast? Your best ability is availability. And if you're not worth the first rounder that you were taken with back when the old regime of analytics was here. And that's the reason that Andrew Berry wants him here too, because he, as part of that group, saw some value in him, not just from an analytical standpoint, because I think Andrew Berry has more of a football mind tying into his analytics.
Oh, yeah.
Which is how it should have been the first time they tried this. It should have been a marriage or a combination of the two, not just analytics, and get rid of all these all these old players, try to bring in young talent. Did it bring assets to the team
Sure.
for what they were able to bring in and why they were so highly touted last year? Sure. But there's got to be a balance between the two. You can't just bring in all these talented players, think you're going to have some sort of super team, and think it's all going to come together. You got to have the right personalities, the right coach, the right leaders to bring it all together.
We learned that the hard way.
Yes. Yes, we did. From bumbling, stumbling Freddie Kitchens. David Njoku, I don't know what you're doing. You tweeted out, and I saw the tweet when it first happened because I was following him on Twitter.
Yeah.
That he was like, I want to compete. We got to make each other better. This team's got to come be better together. And I don't care how many guys they bring in. We're all going to compete. And you can run a 2 tight end system. You can have 3 tight ends. You can do so many different things out of there. And Harrison Bryant's not going to be ready. He's a more slender version of what David Njoku came in to the Browns with out of Miami because he was a young pass-catching tight end that couldn't block, still working on being able to block.
Right.
And Harrison Bryant's got to fill out his frame if he's ever going to develop that kind of skill too.
And tight end is a very tough position.
Very.
In order to get your body right, and you just don't jump off the bat unless you are like Antonio Gates. You don't come out of the womb being that great.
Right. Antonio Gates, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, those guys don't. They're names that have come in succession of one another throughout the NFL over the last, even recent history.
Yeah.
But it's still not common. And Drew Rosenhaus, again, is one of the worst agents to work with. He thinks he's some big dude. And, he's got a lot of money. He's gotten his guys great deals. Well, applause to you, whatever.
Right. He's a super agent.
He's a super agent who annoys the heck out of me. Scott Boras in Major League Baseball annoys the heck out of me because you take on negotiations too long, just like Rob Manfred does. I can go on and on about all these shady characters in sports right now because that's all we really have to go on right now. But Njoku, shut up and play. If the Browns are going to trade you, they'll trade you. I'm going to tell you a line from draft day right now. Just like Sonny Weaver Jr. to the Bryce Drew, the quarterback. If I trade you, I trade you. If I don't, I don't. Right now, you're a member of this football team, and you're going to do what we ask you to do. You just went down to Baker's camp in Texas, and you were all about it. You guys are having a great time. What changed in that time? That's what I want to know. Because if there is something that changed, if there's something that the Browns indicated towards him, of that he's not valued with the team, then maybe that makes sense. But this just came out of nowhere. And, would I love to have Yannick Ngakoue here? Sure. But right now, there is no need to trade him, and if you just try to trade Njoku to any team, the only reason you would trade him is because you're just trying to add a mid-round, third-day draft asset you can try to use in the future towards another trade or just adding depth to your team, and you're trying to ship him off somewhere where he's not going to be utilized, or he's going to be on a team that's on the downward spiral anyways. I mean, I guess Jacksonville may not be great anyways.
Jacksonville's trash.
Right. But if you get a talented player, that's
Yeah.
one thing. But most likely, if you just trade him to trade him, the best you're going to get, I think, is 4th, 5th round pick at most.
I mean,
for
you're
him.
looking at another like Duke Johnson sort of scenario of him requesting the trade out. And it makes sense. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Duke Johnson, Nick Chubb, and then there was Carlos Hyde. And then going into the next year, Carlos is gone, but then we bring in Kareem Hunt. And then Duke is like sitting there. He's like, I was, your receptions leader, a couple years ago. I thought, like you just paid me some money. I thought, I was going to get a chance to be out on the field, and he wasn't going to get his opportunity, so he wanted to go elsewhere. I think that's what Njoku's looking at, because he's looking at from the standpoint, okay, so you bring in Austin Hooper, and then you draft Harrison Bryant, who was the best tight end in college, last year. Where does that leave me? Are you looking at making me the third option? Which I think Njoku's mindset is that.
But it would make more sense if he did that closer to the draft.
Of course.
This is why I'm...
in the middle of nowhere in July 2nd or 3rd, comes out of left field.
And this is why I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid that the Browns are trying to put out there. Do I think that they have put themselves in a better position to succeed with the structure they have in place? Sure.
Yeah.
But I am not going to drink the Kool-Aid as much as I have allowed myself to do in the past, and as much as people want to do now. I don't have to be positive, happy-go-lucky on Twitter.
We've tried that before.
Right. But I don't have to be, I'm not going to be negative about it either. I think that they have made the right steps, but you still have to see it in between the white lines on the field. And if he's going to say, I'm going to compete with people on Twitter, he's just going to speak these words.
Sure.
That's why Baker hasn't said anything. That's why these guys aren't talking, because they know their words aren't going to matter for this team. So shut up and play. If you get traded, you get traded.
Right.
If not, you play on this team and you compete and you show why you think you're so worth the first-round pick you were picked out of the University of Miami, the U that has sucked for the last 20 years since the 80s.
I understand where you're coming from whenever it gets to this, but this is a business. And if he understands that he's not going to be utilized in his best business-like way because he needs catches.
Then he's overthinking his value then. He's overthinking what...
Probably, but everyone overthinks their value. Everyone thinks that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread.
But again, you can't just start thinking that now when you're saying
I get it in July, but it's better that he's doing it now than, let's say, September 11th.
Okay, that's all well and good.
I'm not saying that this is like, the best case scenario or the worst case, but I'm saying like he's doing it right now.
And that's all well and good to do it before the season would start, before you even can get into a training camp.
Right.
That's all well and good, so there's not this kind of stuff going on if they need to get rid of him before that to try to build the right culture. That's fine. But if you're going to say that now versus when the reasons that you may be thinking you're not being valued by the team because they picked up Austin Hooper and they drafted a guy back in April, 2-3 months later, and I'll correct my statement. The University of Miami hasn't been good since the early 2000s when Ohio State ended up beating them.
It's been 20 years.
But it's still been 20 years,
Still, I wasn't going to correct you on that.
Yeah.
They've sucked since Ohio State took them down.
The 80s was their hotbed. It was kind of like their
80s and 90s,
their attitude era, if I were to draw WWE comparisons, their attitude era. But the 2000s, they were still pretty good until Ohio State kind of knocked them off the pedestal at that time. But if you're going to say that now, and your reasons are because they picked up Austin Hooper and they picked up Harrison Bryant. And back then when they did all that and people are trying to come at you saying, oh, do you want to be traded? Do you want to be the top tier tight end somewhere else because they're bringing these guys in?
Let's be fair though. Like I am, going to come out here and say that he did make that, that comment back in March. I believe it was right after Hooper came here. But then they did proceed to draft a tight end in the fourth round.
Right.
But he was technically the best tight end. He won I believe the John Mackey Award last year.
But
in college.
But also understand the coach that you just brought in and what he has been good at within his offense and who he adheres to. He adheres to a running game the Browns have, and he adheres to a tight end game that you have. And if you think that you are the top guy, then go out there and show it. And then you have a rookie that is going to be depth. Austin Hooper just adds more value to this team. This is my thing, though.
Whenever it comes to Njoku, he's looking at his long-term future.
Right.
I think
and he hasn't been on the field long-term.
Fair enough. But he has been here for a couple of years, so he understands the NFL and the way that the game is played.
Yeah.
Okay, especially off the field. So he's looking at his long-term success.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like we all want to look good long-term.
That's fine. Yeah.
He's here max for 1 year. That's the reason why we brought him in, and then we brought in Harrison Bryant, because it is going to take at least a year to probably mold Harrison Bryant into the player that we hope that he can become.
Yeah.
Maybe sooner. It'd be awesome if it was sooner, but it's probably going to take him a year to figure this all out. So you have that buffer year right there, and then we're going to move on from him at that point in time next year. Okay, he's looking at it from the standpoint, well, if you're going to move off me next year, just do it right now. Find me my new home. Like, I'm sure he wants to go to, like, the Patriots, where Cam's at now. And he's like, you know what? And that's not a bad move for him. That'd be a smart long-term move, there for him. And I'm sure that's what he's hoping to get out of this, is that he's looking for his long-term success. So personally, for me, I understand where he's coming from with this. Does it suck as a Browns fan? Because I would have loved to have seen him, and we probably will still see him in our offense. He's still probably going to be the number 2. I don't think Andrew Berry's going to trade him anytime soon, unless he gets that perfect trade of Yannick Ngakoue or something. Like, if he got a 2, if a 2 was offered to him right now, I would say jump on that. Right now you jump on that. But you're not going to get that. I think you're absolutely right. You're looking at a third-day option pick right now, and then if you wanted to get Ngakoue, you'd have to give up that second or possibly a third-round draft pick just to get another guy to come in, just to pay that guy. We're not going to have, we're not planning on paying David Njoku long term or even short term. Like, we picked up his 5th-year option. It was $6 million. That's nothing. To the Browns organization. That is a second, a second tight end pick right there.
Let me just
money-wise.
Let me just end this by saying, you're right. I get anybody's conversation or thought process that they value themselves higher than maybe they should, and maybe that what they're worth. David Njoku, if he's gone, I'm not gonna cry tears of sadness.
He's
at
not
all.
Ozzie Newsome 2.0, guys.
No,
let's be certain of that.
He has always been my most annoying, frustrating player. Of this whole new era since the analytics
took over.
The analytics took over for all of this. He has been the most frustrating, the most annoying, the most overrated player for me. Now, Baker missed him, and he missed that tight end game. That's why the Browns brought in so many tight ends, Njoku, because you weren't available. Again, I'm not trying to downplay injuries, because injuries, you don't want to see that happen to anybody. No matter if you like a person, don't like a person, you better damn sure respect them and not wish injury on them, even with your rivals, players like that, because who knows what that could do to them in the future and any issues with that. But it's still the case that you're not available. You're not able to stay on the field. So the Browns are looking at this like they missed the tight end game. When you were in there, Baker had a little bit more success. They're trying to put Baker in the most successful position possible, where it's all on him now to take that next step, take that maturity step, and they're trying to give those options in that tight end game, because Baker had a pretty good tight end at Oklahoma too, in Mark Andrews, I think it was.
Yeah, Mark Andrews, stud in Baltimore.
He had success in that sort of passing game element too, utilizing the tight end, and Stefanski.
It's the play action.
Stefanski's good at that. They want Baker to be good at that, and they want to have options if a guy like Njoku, who they still value, they still want on this team, can't be on the field. That's why you have Alex Hooper, and that's why you're going to mold Harrison Bryant, who was deemed one of the best pass catching tight ends coming out.
He's a good blocker too.
Yes, he is.